Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Landscape Smart, brought to you by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. Lines are open for your calls, 920-923-1450, 888-900-1450. If you choose the email route, it's kfizstudio@gmail.com. And if you have an email question, send pictures if you can. Makes it much easier for the gang here to answer because they can understand the problem better. And speaking of the gang, we introduce, as always, well, almost always, our good old buddy, not old, our good buddy, Ron, well, maybe, Ron Rademann.
Most of those facts are correct, I guess.
Good to see you.
Yeah, well, thanks, Jerry.
Master Gardener Delores is here again. Good morning, Delores.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
And we are always glad to see you.
Thank you.
Of course, I can't see you through the mic stand, but there you are. Anyhow, Rademann's open?
Rademann's is open today. I would anticipate a fairly busy,
I would think,
day for
good weekend.
Yeah, the temperatures are moderate, let's just say, for this time of year. I mean, we're anticipating highs around, in the low 80s here for the next week, 10 days, 2 weeks. So that's pretty good for this time of year. If it's
pretty normal.
High of 79 or 80, 81, 82, it's not 90, it's not 95. And, this time of year we can, there's a better chance of it being 90 than 70. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, this week looks like it's going to be a pretty good week. Mm-hmm. And we might get some rain.
Yeah, I don't know. We just keep getting these,
They go north, they
50,
go south.
Yeah, it's these 40 and 50 and 60% chances. That's not adding up to 100%.
No.
And it looks like, the 10-day outlook, there's a chance, light chance of showers over the next few days, but then there isn't much in the forecast again.
After that, no. So I hope we get some.
So at least we're not, dealing with extreme heat. It's just extreme drought.
Yeah. And just about all of the state of Wisconsin, I think except the far southwestern corner, is either moderately or at least minimally in a drought condition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's even worse as you get – we've had a little more rain here, like you said, in the south part of Wisconsin or south central part of Wisconsin. As you get further north, up north of Shawano and Green Bay and up in that part of the country, it's been
tender dry.
It's been much drier yet. Mm-hmm. So yeah, get your calls into Rademann's early if you want a delivery yet for today, or stop on out. We're open until noon today. So today's as in Saturday.
Yes.
If you're watching on YouTube or on KFIZ on demand, a few days from now, the hours are different. So then you have to play that into the equation, Monday through Friday till 4:30.
Much better plan that day.
So
we did have an email question that came in earlier, so I'll turn it over to you guys because I printed it out and gave it to you.
Someone sent an email about their zucchini production quitting, and we have not had the rain you need for zucchini. It's been way too dry and way too hot. And so if you had blossoms, it's been too dry for the pollen to for the bees and pollinators. And so I think your problem is you got to water.
Yeah, and you can't do anything about, the extreme heat. That's part of the problem, but so anyway, yeah, with you can water, but that still doesn't, combat the 90 degrees
right
that we had during those periods too. But yeah, in the email it even said quit producing, so that to me said that she had good luck with it earlier in the season, mm-hmm. and then now when you'd think you'd be, now's typically when you get the big zucchinis
right
forming, mm-hmm. and apparently that hot weather that we had, a few weeks back, that's what, like Delores said, knocked the
Knock the socks off.
burnt the pollen, or
Right. So it just dries up the blooms.
Mm-hmm. So I would,
And you have to be careful watering. You don't want the water to set on the surface because then you might have your root ball rot on you.
So it needs to absorb.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, Pam, hopefully that answers your question. At least it's one possibility.
Yeah, and today's August 15th, so that's kind of the unofficial kickoff to the best time to do like seeding.
That was going to be my question. Are we in the season now where we can do our fall spot seeding?
Yeah,
Late seeding.
Yeah, I have a tendency to either pick out points in the month or firsts of the month, middle of the month, or holidays, different things like that.
Yes.
That way you can kind of relate to these different things. And of course, the middle of August, there's no, we're a month and that's and something from the 4th of July, and we're still 3 weeks away from Labor Day, so we have to make our own holiday here on August 15th. And you have to start thinking now. It's a whole different ball game than what it was just a few weeks ago, and you have to gear up. I've always found through the years, and this isn't every year, it's just a generality, I guess, I've noticed and experienced in my long history of seeding, and it always seems like the best seeding success stories happen if you do it in later in August. If you try to time out the perfect best time, the best time, when's the best time? It's the best time is when it starts to get cooler, you start getting more moisture, and way before we get snow or frost. And you can never, the best time is probably, maybe the first week of September. But what if you miss the first week of September because it rains, because you're busy? Well, then you would have been better off doing it a week early or 2 weeks early.
Which is now.
Which is because it's way better to do it, 2 weeks early than 2 weeks late. And so that's why I always gear up for August 15th or starting, in that 15th, 20th, 25th time of year to do these things, because that way if the weather does delay you, you're pushed into still a good time. But if you wait too long and you wait until September 10th, which supposedly is probably the absolute best time, it can turn out to be the worst time if that week turns out to be rainy and you miss out on the opportunity, or something comes up. You can have family emergencies, different things that play into it too. So you're better off gearing up a week early than ending up being a week or 2 weeks late. So,
along those same lines, I've gotten a couple of emails or texts, I don't remember which it was, from lawn care companies, and they're talking about fall aeration and generalized overseeding. What are your thoughts lawn-wise on those two procedures?
Well, it's if it's necessary, it's necessary, and you don't want it's really too early to do that. I would definitely wait there. And you can, if you're overseeding, it's not like a whole new lawn. You could overseed and aerate and overseed in October, because you're kind of counting on it then to germinate and grow next spring too. You don't have to, which is completely different than putting in a brand new lawn or doing areas, redoing areas of your own lawn. And so, that I would have a tendency to wait a little while here yet. You could actually try fertilizing it and improving the grass that you have here during late August and September before I would have to, maybe it isn't necessary to reseed. Mm-hmm. If you can, improve the grass that you have. And a lot of times your grass is just thin, and just by, fertilizing it in early September, fertilizing it again 6 weeks later, middle of October, you can improve the grass you have. Then put your winterizer on in November, and don't put your winterizer on in September or October, because all you'll be doing is mowing to beat the band going into the fall season then, because you're going to kickstart your grass. So, hold off on that winterizer. We used to recommend doing winterized lawn applications, I guess, fertilizer applications more around Halloween, the end of October, but we've kind of moved that date a few weeks later too now, because it seems like, winter comes a few weeks later now than what it did 30 years ago and 50 years ago. So we've kind of moved that, the winterizing fertilizer, your step 4, into early November, because otherwise the fertilizer is used up already. And if you cheat a week early on winterizing, and we end up with 3 weeks of warm weather, you're going to end up, burning all your winterizing fertilizer, which is there primarily to build a root system up in the fall and winter so you have a better lawn in the spring. And if you burn that all up on growth in the fall, well, then you got to put another winterizer application down in November, because otherwise it didn't do any good, at least as far as the root development goes. It's going to grow out the top at that point. So
Aeration, fall, spring, summer, or makes no difference?
Well, again, the easiest way to figure out the best time to aerate is just drive around and drive past a golf course. And you can find out when the professionals are aerating, and they're usually, if you call up an aeration company, they're going to tell you the best time to aerate is right now.
Yeah, because they want to get paid.
They want to get paid. They have bills to pay and employees to keep busy. So they're going to go out. They'll come out and aerate your lawn next week for you, and they'll do it. But no, that's not really the best time. And of course, if a golf course would be aerating in August, they'd be doing it right in their customers wouldn't be real happy either.
Very true.
So they wait and do it later in the fall for two good reasons. First of all, the courses aren't as busy, but it's also a better time to do things like that. So, when you see the golf courses aerating, then it's probably a good time to aerate, which is typically, more into October. So,
alrighty. While we're waiting for that next call, let's take a break.
Sounds like a plan. Again, Saturday morning, Rademann's is open till noon, Monday through Friday till 4:30. We're just 3 miles south of Fond du Lac, and then east exit off of Highway 41 onto County Trunk B as in boy, and then we're right there at the crest of the hill.
And we will be right back. Lines are open for your questions. 920-923-1450, 888-900-1450. Computer's working. If you got an email question, kfizstudio@gmail.com. And always, we recommend you call your questions in earlier in the show rather than later, so that there's plenty of time to get your questions properly answered. With the weather being as hot as it's been and the watering issues, et cetera, are we doing anything differently this year as far as, I know you were talking off air about dividing and conquering perennial plants?
Yeah, well, we could. I'm looking at Delores. Delores is looking at me. So, yeah, we were just talking earlier or during the break on like dividing perennials and things like that. And, the perennials are kind of divided into two groups. And some of those, like right now, you wouldn't want to divide coneflowers and things like that
or hostas
that are blossoming or anything like that.
But the plants that bloom in the spring can be divided in the fall better than in the spring. How about trees?
Well, trees are everything. Like well, there too. August 15th is our. We're in the midst of transplanting evergreens at this point in time. After August 1st, it works out real well, and you want to plant evergreens prior to September 15th. So we've got about a month there, and every year's a little bit different there too. Some years you can cheat on that and go into the fall season, and arborvitaes are touchier than spruce trees are, for example. So you might want to do an arborvitae more now or in early September, whereas you can do spruce trees later into September. As far as shrubs go, leafy plants, leafy trees, leafy shrubs, deciduous, there you'd want to wait until into October for the most part. We're way too early there yet. We've got about 2 months yet. We got to get through this cycle, and that way they're either lost their leaves or they're going to lose their leaves. That's going to be a better time to transplant. That's dig out and replant. Mm-hmm. As compared to just planting, that doesn't mean if there's a tree or a shrub right now that is balled and burlapped or in a pot or container, then the best time to plant it is today. The quicker you can get them in the ground, the better. The roots root out and grow, and they're going to adapt a lot quicker next summer, next year than plants that you would wait and plant in October, because they get rooted in here yet while the soil temperatures are warm. So the best time to plant is always sooner rather than later. There's two aspects there's planting and then there's transplanting, and transplanting or digging them out, isn't, but you can dig out, you can transplant evergreens right now. Don't dig out and don't transplant leaf trees at this time. So, but you can plant anytime.
And with the weather we've been having, you're going to have to do a lot of watering.
Yeah, and that, that's always a little variable too, because, if you're planting perennials or you're planting small shrubs in small pots, there you're watering maybe 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 times a week if it's hot. If you're planting larger trees, larger evergreens, those you can go a week or 10 days a lot of times without watering, because they've got a stronger, deeper root system. So, everybody says, boy, it's a lot more work to dig a bigger hole, but it only takes you about an extra 15 or 20 minutes to dig a bigger hole, and then you can have a bigger tree planted, and you save all the extra labor and effort in watering. So I've always found it's a lot less work to plant a bigger tree than it is to plant a smaller tree, because the care is the key to both of these, and the little bit of extra time it takes to dig a little bit bigger hole, it saves you in time as far as watering goes throughout the rest of this year and next year too. So, and that maybe takes me into another question. Everybody, I get a lot of questions on, well, you have a better chance of survival with a younger tree. Well, I can attest that you don't have a better chance of survival with a younger tree. Now, if you plant a younger tree correctly and you don't plant a large tree correctly, yes, you're going to have better success with a smaller tree. But if you plant both a big tree correctly and you plant both a small tree correctly, you're going to have better luck with a bigger tree. And the reasoning behind that is you've got an older tree, you've got a more established root system, you've got a tougher tree because it's already, 10 or 15 years old rather than 2 or 3. A a 3 or 4 year old tree, hasn't dealt with a lot of the extreme conditions yet. A 12 or a 15-year-old tree, that's already dealt with the 100-year flood that we've experienced, the 100-year heat that we've experienced, the 100-year drought, the 100-year winter temperatures. It's already survived through those in the last 15 years. It's supposed to be 100 years, but it seems like these days it's more every 10 years. So we kind of joke about these 100-year events that happen every 10 years these days. But, that's why a larger tree typically does better than a smaller tree. And now if you don't plant a large tree correctly, it's not going to do well. And if you do plant a younger tree, it's going to outperform. So, you want to be careful there too. Don't bite off more than you can chew. If you're going to try and do this yourself, plant the largest tree that you can capably handle. Don't try to outdo yourself, let's just say. And that's why, if you do have larger trees, typically it's better to get some experienced help and, have a landscape contractor do the planting for you. That way, it is planted properly.
Correctly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Give it a good shot at survival.
Right. Mm-hmm. And again, right now is your best time to be planting evergreens. You want to do that sooner rather than later. So yeah, this is, I always, these August 15th deadline dates, not really a deadline. It's more of a starting line, starting point line, not a finishing point.
Well, it's here. I've been procrastinating all summer. I guess this week I know what I'll be doing.
One thing, we're talking about a finishing line. We're kind of getting to the end of the season on using your water-soluble fertilizers. Now, that doesn't mean, it kind of depends, again, what you're fertilizing. If you're fertilizing your hanging baskets and your annuals, well, go ahead and fertilize away. They're going to freeze out and die come October, November, no matter what. So that's fine with those. But what you don't want to be doing is using the water-soluble fertilizers as we go into the end of August here, because typically that's pushing out a lot of new growth then into September. And, trees, shrubs, anything like that, they want to be winding down in September so that when we start getting the freezing temperatures and the frost in October, they're not vigorously growing. They've kind of stopped growing, and they can go into fall on their own terms rather than you pushing them. So the definition of water soluble fertilizers are just ones that, it's either a powder or a liquid fertilizer that you're mixing with water, and you're using those for fertilizing rather than using like the NutriPack packets or spikes or something like that. Those you can continue to use into August, September, October, November. You can use those any time of year because they're not taking in, the plant isn't taking it in immediately, and it's not whereas the liquid water soluble fertilizers there, you're putting it right on the foliage or right into the root system, and it's reacting immediately to that.
Let's grab a call. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. Should I cut my peonies down in the spring or in the fall?
I cut the blooms off early because they just flop so much, but the peonies should not be cut down until fall when the leaves have turned color. And I put them right on top of the peony because they do need to be mulched over winter or you won't get blossoms in the spring.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's good information.
So, yeah, you'd cut the flowers should have been cut off already.
Yeah, I did that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you could cut cut it back into the fall, and then like Delores said, save those leafy stems and use that as your mulch. Mm-hmm.
Right, I will do that. Thank you so much.
All righty. Thanks for the call and good luck with the project.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care. 920-923-1450, 888-900-1450. Lines are open for you, and we're going to take break number 2.
Time for a break. Sounds like a good idea. Again, Saturday morning, Rademann's open until noon today, Monday through Friday till 4:30. You can give Joe a call out there. He'll get you set up with a delivery. 920-922-7612, or stop on out just 3 miles south of Fond du Lac, east on County Trunk B, right there at the crest of the hill.
920-923-1450. We are back. Landscape Smart, brought to you by Rademann Stone and Landscape Company. And during the break, we were discussing what we were going to be discussing, and the topic of, hold on. Sorry about that. Little problem there. The topic of bushy tomato plants came up, and green tomatoes hanging but covered by leaves. And the question I brought up was, do you trim the stuff back so that there's some air space and some sun space and some ripening opportunities, or expert opinions?
That sounds just great. Even if you have blooms, but you really don't need a lot more tomatoes, cut the blooms back so the plant can ripen. And I noticed that a lot of people have blossom end rot this year, that we haven't had a lot of rain, and so the tomatoes aren't growing, and it's just too warm, and they start to rot. And it might be a calcium deficiency. It's hard to tell when we've had this really hot and really dry weather. But if you keep having that problem year after year, you would want to get a soil sample into the UW extension and find out what your plant is missing.
Okay. I've been blessed this year. I had one tomato which had a little tiny speck of blossom end rot. Everything else so far has been red and nice, except for the ones that some animal decided to eat overnight. Yeah.
But, well, and, Delores kind of got us started here on this a little bit. If it takes a while to get a tomato from a blossom all the way to a ripe tomato, and as we get into the fall season here, again, it is the middle of August, and some of these tomatoes that if they're just producing blossoms now, you might as well cut those blossoms off. If you want more tomatoes into September and October, well, of course, you keep the blossoms coming. But if you're going to be cleaning out your tomatoes early, if you're going to have enough of them, well, just get rid of those blossoms, and then the plant can put the energy into finishing the tomatoes that are already there, rather than trying to start and produce new tomatoes. So, and like you said, or you said there was like leaves covering the tomatoes. There again, too, you could be kind of trimming out some of those leaves, and it just, you have less chance of fungus problems and disease problems if you have less foliage there, because the sun can get in there, the light can get in there, the wind can get in there, and funguses and blights and different things like that, they like it dark, they like it damp, they like it shady. And so if you open it up to more sunlight, and that doesn't, it's all plants, it's some of these are just generalizations. We happen to be talking about tomatoes at the time, but it's kind of the same on other plants too, that if you can get if you can get better air circulation and you can get more sunlight in there, you're going to just have less problems with the different funguses, blights, different, whatever you want to call it. Let's just say, disease problems, all of those things. So,
And then they're more apt to ripen then too, is what
well,
you're saying.
right, because something can go wrong in the ripening process there, then, and the quicker you can get them finished off and ripened, the better.
Yeah, then you can eat them.
Then you have less chance
I'm
of
not
something
into fried green tomatoes, so I need red.
Sure. Yep.
Well, now I got another chore.
Yeah, and it's not like you have to go out there, you just take your snips and just make a few strategic cuts, I always say, here and there. You don't have to, go in there and end up with a pail of branches, a pail of leaves bigger than the tomato, just every little touch-up, just a little touch-up here and there goes a long way.
And not being a master gardener, my fear is I'm always going to do something to harm the plant and then screw up the tomatoes I have or whatever, just little apprehension there. Matter of fact, a lot. But
well, and that's kind of the same thing there too. And with that thought in mind too, you don't want to do a lot of heavy pruning at this time of year, trimming any plants as we get into the end of August and September. Now, if you've got a one little sweeping branch that's coming down that's irritating as you try to mow, well, you're not going to kill the tree by taking a branch off. Just like you aren't going to die if you amputate the tip of your little finger. It's you're going to be fine. The tree is going to be fine. The plant will be fine. With a small cut like that, when we say trimming or pruning, we just mean kind of, if you're cutting, you don't want to be cutting a third of it, half of it, 40%, a large amount of trimming, but, a 1% or 2 or 3 or 5% isn't going to hurt it. But, just not a drastic trimming or pruning here as we get into the end of August and September. Then just wait it out until October, and then you can go back at it and do what needs to be done. So
You don't want to do that with blooming shrubs, though. Cutting back has to be done shortly after they've bloomed, or you will be cutting back next year's blooms.
yeah, the lilac variety.
Right.
That in mind, yeah.
yeah, and whereas your late summer and fall blooming hydrangeas and that, for example, and you could, it's a few weeks ago, if you could have did a little trimming on hydrangeas, and then you would have got some more new growth out of them here into middle or later August, and more new growth equates to more flowers on hydrangeas. But even now, if you start, trimming hydrangeas, by the time they regrow and reflower, it's probably going to be too late. I don't know that you're going to get, but we don't know what the weather's going to be like in later September and early October. Maybe we have a real nice, a lot of 60s and 70s in late September and in October. Well, then you might get some more flowers off of your fall blooming plants. And even like right now, the bloomerang lilac, the one that flowers continually, well, it doesn't really flower continually. It flowers in early summer, early June, late May, more around like Memorial Day. And then you can trim those flowers off, and then the bloomerang lilac is regrowing and reflowering here right now into August and early September. So that's kind of a little treat that you get out of lilacs. There isn't really anything that has that lavender purple as far as deciduous shrubs go. That is, there's perennials, of course, that do, but your larger shrubs, that's where bloomerang lilac comes in, and it's so much different than the other lilacs and most any other plant, where you get that real nice strong bloom in around Memorial Day, and then you'll get the secondary blossoms here coming up now into later August and September.
Nice.
So
Sounds like a good way to go. If you're planting lilacs, at least you get double the pleasure.
yeah, and that bloomerang lilac doesn't have the large, extremely fragrant flowers that lilacs are known for. Now there is some fragrance there, but it's not, you're not going to notice it from a block away like you do the French hybrid lilacs that are specially hybridized and bred for for their fragrant flowers. This one is hybridized and bred for its summer flowers. So
For the beauty, not the smell.
right, yeah, yeah. And you still get a little of that with these, just not the real intense fragrance that you get from those the French hybrid varieties.
All righty, we've got a call coming in, but I got to take this third break. So, caller, I'm going to put you on hold here. Hang tight.
All right, well, we'll take a short, quick break here. And again, Rademann's open till noon today, Monday through Friday till 4:30, 920-922-7612. Or if you're tuning in late, catch us on YouTube, Landscape Smart 26. Will bring up the earlier part of today's show.
We are back, the final few minutes, and that caller didn't hang on. So if you want to give us a call back, do so, 920-923-1450. Final moments already. The hours fly.
Yeah, it's hard to... Seems like we're just getting started, and pretty soon we're putting out the final warning here. Call quickly. So
5 minutes left, huh?
4 minutes and 48 seconds. But who's counting?
to be almost exact, yeah.
But anyhow, we do have time. If you want to give a call back or give a call, we can get your question in here yet. So do so. There.
All right. Well,
I don't know what to ask.
now we gotta find something to talk about. We thought we were gonna have a question to.
Yeah, so we didn't plan anything.
Yeah. So
it's all your fault, caller.
throwing us for a loop. Well, let's see. Let's talk about fall color coming up, I guess. That is a question I did get earlier this week too. People, texted me some pictures and they go, my maple's turning color. And looks like you're gonna have to wait till next week. Before we get to that.
Yep,
answer.
we got our caller back. Good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning. I have a question. When is the best time to cut the old cane out of raspberry bushes?
I wait until after we have strong frost and the ground has cooled down, because if you trim too early, you can get insects into the canes, and you might want to just wait until March to do your trimming.
Okay, because I found a couple of webs with some chewed up cane that kind of caught in there. So maybe there's already a start for those insects. Some of the canes didn't look very healthy as they were producing, and so I cut them down.
I think I would cut them right to the ground, and so that it doesn't go into another cane.
Yeah, if you've got right now, it was a little difficult to hear her, but basically what she was asking is, or the way I was interpreting the question is, there's some insects or some problems there right now. So then if you've got a current problem with insects on older canes of raspberry canes, then I would remove them. You don't want to let them hang in there and potentially, produce more eggs and different problems down the road. So yeah, if you've got anything that's diseased or infested, I would it would be better to take
completely.
it out now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
All righty, thanks for the call and good luck.
Yeah. Well, and it's not easy to work your way through a raspberry patch at this time of year. but because you've got usually some pretty vicious canes and things you're dealing with.
They're looking for you.
Right, where as the fruit dissipates and there's less foliage in there, you can kind of see what you're doing a little bit better come later fall or spring. So that's why typically, like Delores said, wait until March and do it, because then you can kind of see what you're doing better. You can get in there better. You want to do it before the new shoots start growing in the spring.
And you want to do it before the insects show up, because if you have stem borer insects around and you don't trim them until it's warmer, those insects can attack your raspberries.
Mm-hmm. So
It's that time already.
So, I guess we'll
talk fall color next week.
Yeah, well, we'll be a little closer to fall color next week. We have a couple months before we have to worry about fall color, hopefully. So if you're tuned in late or you had to cut out early, you can watch us on YouTube, Landscape Smart 26, or KFIZ On Demand. Again, Rademann's open till noon today, Saturday, Monday through Friday till 4:30, just 3 miles south of Fond du Lac. Exit off County Trunk B is the easiest way to find us, and then just east a quarter mile.